It takes months of diligent study and flight time to become a pilot. But what about training pilots who command aircraft in some of the most dangerous situations? Like hovering a helicopter in hurricane-force winds, or lowering a helo in between trees to rescue someone trapped in a ravine, or searching for a vessel in distress in the black of night with no visibility. At the Coast Guard's Aviation Training Center in Mobile, Alabama, pilots undergo rigorous training in order to be prepared for such difficult flying conditions.
The Aviation Training Center here in Mobile, Alabama is the hub of Coast Guard aviation. The name is a little misleading because we're much more than only an aviation training center. First mission, primary mission, is of course operational in nature. And we support the citizens and protect the citizens and property along the Gulf Coast.
But training is a big part of their mission. Virtually every Coast Guard aviator is trained at one time or another by the Aviation Training Center. Pilots like Lance Belbin, who have just earned their wings, transfer here to familiarize themselves with the aircraft they'll fly with the Coast Guard.
I've actually always wanted to fly. That's the only reason I came to the Coast Guard, and that was my main objective from day one entering the academy.
Instructors at the Aviation Training Center teach pilots to operate the Falcon jet and two kinds of helicopters, the H-60 Jayhawk and the H-65 Dolphin. Whether a veteran pilot taking a one-week refresher course or a new pilot spending 5 weeks in intensive study, all the procedures and maneuvers must be mastered. And as with any training, it begins in the classroom.
What's the biggest threat we have in Coast Guard aviation? Weather. The ground, yeah. Terrain, exactly. Aircraft maintenance status, why is that important?
In addition to classroom instruction, the pilots spend a great deal of time in individual computer-based training. These computer programs test their knowledge of the equipment and complex emergency procedures that cannot be demonstrated elsewhere.
And in this picture right here, we've actually simulated what we call a high side failure, which is an emergency procedure in the aircraft. These are malfunctioning gauges. They appear to be normal, but there's actually a malfunction going on. And by moving the collective up and down, that's how we troubleshoot in the aircraft to determine exactly what the problem is with the aircraft. And this shows them how to do that troubleshooting. Here at the training command, or even at the unit, they can't practice this emergency. The first time they'll see it for real is when it happens for real. And hopefully they've played with it on the computer-based training module that we have here, and it's not a new thing for them. They've seen it before, they know what it is, and they can deal with it easily.
You should only know one thing, and that's like...
Before any flight training, the instructor and students attend a briefing. Here, they review the parameters of the exercise. Once everyone understands the required procedures, they're ready for the simulator. Other than the flight itself, the flight simulator is the most dramatic component of the training. This device simulates the actual flight of the helicopter.
It's set up identical to the cockpit and gets updated to stay updated with the cockpit that we have in the aircraft. The instructor sits at a console in the back and has the ability to change certain parameters.
When you're in the simulator, it looks real outside. When you're approaching airports, they've got all the appropriate lighting. The feel is probably as real as you can get without the real thing. It has winds built into it. The computer will generate side forces. It'll start to rattle as if you're having a transmission problem. You get the audible signals, not only the horns and the beeps that you get out of the aircraft, but you also get the audible signals as far as the aircraft running, and it sounds like an engine running, and it actually kind of feels like the aircraft itself.
In this simulator, students can experience a variety of emergency conditions that cannot be practiced in a helo. Conditions such as a lightning strike.
There was a thunderstorm located offshore about 5 or 6 miles, and this thunderstorm decided to take a little lightning bolt and reach out and grab our aircraft. The lightning hit 2 of the main rotor blades and put holes in those 2 blades about the size of a silver dollar. We had sparks cascading down the windscreen and the cabin doors like water going over Niagara Falls. And we had about 6 or 7 electrical emergencies in the cockpit, all simultaneously.
Fortunately, because of their training, they were able to land the aircraft safely, despite the severity of the damage. And what was learned from that terrifying event is now taught in the flight simulator.
We'll start today on the back of a Coast Guard cutter, a medium endurance cutter, a 270, running, and we'll run through some checklist items, and we'll go ahead and run through some comms procedures, and then we'll actually take off from the 270, back up, and do approaches to the deck.
Landing a helicopter on the deck of a moving cutter is one of the more difficult maneuvers a pilot has to learn. Obviously, it requires a lot of practice in the simulator before actually attempting it in a helo. As the helo begins to lift off the deck, the ship rolls up towards the helo and the helo crashes.
I think we had a little bit of rolling moment to the left there.
The pilots consider their error and try again.
Unlike landing and taking off from the ground out here, the ship is a victim of the sea state and moves up and down. That's why we have pitch and roll limits that because we worry about rolling the helicopter over, because you can be at 1 minute 2 feet off the deck and the deck come up and hit you.
Probably the most daunting maneuver for a new pilot is hovering the helo while the rescue swimmer is being hoisted. In this situation, the pilot's attention is not only on the helo, but also on the rescue swimmer and survivor.
Are you going to come up close to the object? You're going to have to get within 2 to 3 feet of the object with the swimmer, because he's on the tether. He's never going to disconnect or swim around to get the survivor.
This is the first time that Lance, the pilot in training, will work with the rescue swimmer and victim, in this case, a dummy. The crew reviews the safety checklist to ensure that all systems are in order. The helo is then ready for takeoff.
Downtown Tower, Coast Guard helicopter 6548 is just off of...
The pilot in training must maintain a steady aircraft during a series of exercises. In the first, the rescue swimmer free falls into the water and swims to the victim, while the flight mech prepares to lower the basket. Once the victim is in the basket, the flight mech hoists him to safety. Next, they recover the victim by direct deployment. Hovering the helo during this entire procedure takes a great deal of concentration and control.
It was pretty difficult. I'd always heard about it, and they brief it as being difficult because when you're hovering in a helicopter, you pick up visual cues both sideways and forward, and that allows you to judge your rate of motion laterally as far as hovering over the water and being able to stay stable in one place. Because a helicopter is inherently unstable, it doesn't want to stay in one place. It was extremely difficult, and everybody that said it was difficult was right.
Fine job, real good job. You ready?
There is also a briefing after each training flight. Here, the instructor reviews the pilot's performance, handles any concerns, and, in this case, congratulates him on a job well done. This is Lance's last week at the Aviation Training Center. After 5 weeks of rigorous flight training, he is ready for his permanent assignment, co-pilot at a Coast Guard air station near you.